The Oklahoma Sooners were dominated by the Auburn Tigers.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. The Oklahoma Sooners fall to the Auburn Tigers, the number one Auburn Tigers, 98-70 on Tuesday night in a game where, listen, our guy Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn believed that Oklahoma was going to be able to cover the spread. I wasn't so confident that they'd be able to get within 16.5 of the number one team in the nation. Again, this is an Auburn Tigers team whose only loss on the season is to number 2 Duke. They're undefeated in SEC play, and they've been really, really good. And ultimately, this was just a bad matchup for Oklahoma, not just because of the two teams, very much different records this season, but in the UFC, they say style make fights, right? Styles make fights. Well, this was one of those games where stylistically, Auburn was just going to be a bad matchup for Oklahoma because they just are so good on the inside. And that's what played out on Tuesday night. The Oklahoma Sooners, Sam Godwin, got into big foul trouble. He had 4 fouls early in the fourth quarter with like 19 minutes left to play. That just showed you what kind of night it was going to be for him. Muhammad Wegi also got into foul trouble. It was hard to keep him on the floor, especially as you started to get behind and you needed a little bit more of a scoring punch. Oklahoma just didn't have an answer for those guys on the inside, and Auburn was able to take advantage. I mean, Johnny Broome, he had 15 points in this game. Their guy Caldwell he had 8. He was 4-4. They had 5 guys in double figures. That's not going to win you many games if you're Oklahoma, and they have that many guys that can score for them. But Oklahoma only had 4 guys in double figures. Forsyth, Jalen Moore, Jeremiah Fears, and Kobe Elvis. Now, a lot of Kobe Elvis's points came in basically garbage time towards the end of the game, where he was really the only one doing anything offensively. But it was just a bad night. Oklahoma obviously is outmatched by this Auburn Tigers team, an Auburn team that could really win it all. They've got good depth. They've got good perimeter scoring. They can score from the inside. They've got good defenders. I mean, Oklahoma really, really struggled in the second half to get a clean look, whether it was from the perimeter or on a layup. It seemed like every single shot they took was being contested. And when it wasn't being contested, it's because it was 2-3 feet outside the arc. And it was early in the possession. They didn't expect Oklahoma to shoot that soon. And just Oklahoma just couldn't capitalize. When they did get good looks at the basket, they couldn't capitalize. And that pretty much shows up in the box score. Oklahoma shot just 33% from the field, 30.4% from 3. They were good from the free throw line, 27-29. That was kind of their only saving grace. If they would have had a rough night from the foul line, it would have looked a lot worse. But just in the second half alone, Oklahoma shot just 29.6%, 23.3 from the field. And it was a fairly close game in the first half. I mean, with just over 8 minutes to play, Oklahoma's only down 5. But then Auburn goes on a run to close out the half and then finish the half up 10. And then they outscore Oklahoma by 18 in the second half. And I mean, it didn't take long in the second half to realize that Oklahoma wasn't going to be able to come back in this game. They weren't getting enough from Jeremiah Fears. They weren't getting enough from Jalen Moore, who had a really, really difficult time dealing with Auburn's length and physicality on the inside, as did everybody on Oklahoma's roster. But you kind of had to expect this, right? It's why I had a hard time believing Oklahoma could keep this within 16.5 points when I was speaking with Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn on our crossover show on Tuesday that I released on Tuesday. And it wasn't because I don't think Oklahoma's got the ability to go and win some games and be a tough out in the NCAA tournament. It's just that Auburn is just that stinking good. They're playing basketball on another level right now, and it's levels above where Oklahoma's at. And that's not to say that Oklahoma can't make the NCAA tournament. That doesn't mean that Oklahoma can't even – I think they could go into the tournament and they can win 1 or 2 games. I think that's on the table for them if they can find another level, if they can get a little bit more consistent, if they can get better at creating shots and finding open shots and finishing. this is an Oklahoma team that still has good talent and good scoring punch. It's just, again, they ran into a behemoth. The Auburn Tigers are just that good. And, it goes to show just how much work Oklahoma's got to do to beef up on the inside to be able to play with teams like this, because you're seeing this more and more in the SEC. You're seeing them be able to solidify their interior. And then, everybody's got good guard play. It's hard to find a team that doesn't have pretty solid to good guard play. When Jeremiah Fears is on, he's really, really good. But when he's off, which he and Dayton Forsythe, they could not find the basket tonight. Jeremiah Fears just 1 of 8 from the field. Dayton Forsythe 1 of 8 from the field. Jalen Moore 5 of 12. He was the only one that had a respectable shooting night. Duke Miles was 3 of 3, but again, a lot of his stuff came in late in the game. Again, it was the free throw line that really was the saving grace for the Sooners. They had 15 turnovers in this one, and not good. They did a reasonable job on the boards. This was one area where Oklahoma really struggled in certain games, especially go back to those Texas A&M games where they had a chance to win, if not for giving up so many offensive rebounds. Well, they rebounded fairly well. They held Auburn to just where was it? I saw it just a second ago. I had it to just 10 offensive rebounds in the game. That's pretty good. Like, I expected Auburn to be able to out-rebound Oklahoma significantly. Now, they out-rebounded Oklahoma by 10, but they only were a +1 on the offensive glass. So Oklahoma's rebounding efforts were good enough to win. But again, 15 turnovers to 7. You have a poor shooting night, and you really can't get a good shot off in the second half. And that's ultimately what leads to Oklahoma's loss here. Now they fall to 3-6 in SEC play with 9 games to go. They've got a lot. They got 7 ranked opponents left in their final 9. And I think if they can go 4-5, that gets them to 20 wins. And I think they're a shoo-in for the NCAA tournament. If they can go 2-7, that's going to put them right on the bubble. It'll be close. I think they got to get to at least 4-5 to feel really, really confident about where they're headed and be able to pick up a win over, or several wins over, some of these top 25 teams. Because you look at Oklahoma's schedule down the stretch, and they're going to play number 4 Tennessee coming up next. They also will have a matchup with number 15 Missouri after that. Then they get LSU, and then you play number 6 Florida, number 22 Mississippi State, number 14 Kentucky, number 25 Ole Miss, who just got a big win over Kentucky, and number 15 Missouri, before closing the season with Texas, the team you lost to earlier in the season. So, there's no gimmies left on this schedule. There's no easy games for Oklahoma. They're going to have to find a way to win some of these and steal a game against a top 25 team to really solidify themselves. But if you look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology from Tuesday over at ESPN, he has the Oklahoma Sooners slated as a 9 seed. That's a pretty solid spot to be, because Oklahoma is still in a good spot in the quad 1 rating and the quad 1 wins. When you look at net ratings, they, where are they at right now? They're number 37 in the net. Now, that's not factoring in the Auburn loss, which, listen, if you look at that game ahead of the most recent ratings update, you're probably expecting Oklahoma to lose to Auburn. But in quad 1 games, Oklahoma's 4-5, or 4-6 now, I should say. And they're undefeated in quad 2, 3, and 4. So if you're 4-6 in quad 1 games and you've won every other game, that's not a bad place to be. I think Oklahoma, again, is sitting in a really, really good spot. Now it's just a matter of going and finishing the season strong. Again, Joe Lunardi has Oklahoma as a 9 seed currently, slated to play St. Mary's. And the 1 seed in that bracket would be Alabama. If the 2 teams got together in the second round, it would be Oklahoma, Alabama, and Alabama whooped Oklahoma to welcome them to the SEC in the first game of conference play. So could Oklahoma get some revenge on that one? We'll see. I think depending on their seeding, depending on their matchup, Oklahoma can get hot enough to go make some noise in the NCAA tournament. It's just a matter of, can they find another gear? Can they find another shooting streak? Can they be a little bit more consistent offensively? And if they can, they'll have a chance. That's going to do it for this bonus episode of Locked On Sooners, just breaking down Oklahoma versus Auburn. Make sure you tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But until next time, I'm John Williams, Boomer Sooner.